Welcome to the Upshift podcast, where changemakers meet and commune and find out how each other is doing their part in changing the world. Hello and welcome to the Upshift podcast. Today we're interviewing Bonnie Casamassima. Did I say that correctly?
You did, yes.
Yay. Bonnie is a friend and also somebody I'm extremely inspired by. She was, and I'm probably not going to get all this right, Bonnie, but you can correct me. She was in research, data research, and analyzing, and then realized that really it's her intuitive skills that she's most connected to. And that's really her power, her strongest power. So this amazing woman has brought them together, and we're going to find out how she did that, why she did that, and what that's doing to the community around her. Welcome, Bonnie.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Angel. It's so wonderful to be here. I'm excited about today's conversation. And
Yeah.
hello to everyone who's listening.
So what did I get that right?
It's perfect. Yes, yeah. I've had quite the fun journey going from very analytical research professor to supporting people now and connecting with their intuition, but really bringing that research piece and education as the forefront of it. So it's been a beautiful journey, one filled with a lot of a lot of learnings, a lot of lessons, and a lot of growth opportunities. But yeah, you synthesized it beautifully.
So the question is, how did you close the gap?
Whew. What a great question. Really, in hindsight, we're able to see that path, right? But when I was in it, it was a lot of, there's not really like a synthesized answer with it. So I'll just riff with what wants to move through. And it was a series of trusting these subtle nudges of knowing. These, I can't explain why, but this feels right. So I'm just going to keep showing up. And that really led through the journey of embodying more and more fully, really listening to my intuition as a guide, and then seeing what wants to move through me in the ways that I support people or offerings and just really how I show up in the world. There's a lot of stories within that, but I think the kind of takeaway or the synthesis is really listening to, this opportunity, this client, this position doesn't really feel alive inside my body. It feels really numb or tight or compressed. And this other one feels really open, really spacious, really alive. Let me follow those a little bit more. It's definitely an ongoing journey of continuing to build that self trust and say, okay, like, wait, we're allowed to have fun in this life. But it's really been a series of trusting those nudges, tuning into my intuition. And along the way, finding mentors that have supported and guided me, and then building up a lot of daily ish practices that help me to stay really, really calm, really grounded for the most part, regardless of what's happening around me.
Yeah, so I hear courage. I hear that there's nudges tell you there's something better, different, something that feels better. But I am just curious, and I only touched on this a little bit, is what did it have to take courage wise? And I know you got some support, but that the courage to say, I'm leaving this very known world into this very unknown world. I want to know what that was like, what in your words it took and the courage. And then also when you discovered you, the real, I mean, I say the real you, but it's like uncovering the Bonnie that you are evolving into. So the courage and then seeing, and then what was that like?
My goodness. Really scary. Really scary a lot of times. A lot of like, oof, so kind of like super high level. I love the work that I did. I worked in the corporate world for years and years and then worked in the research worlds of academia. And I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the people I worked with. I enjoyed the students I got to work with. And there was a lot of alignment there. And there was still this piece of like, "Oh, this isn't the full picture. I can't explain why, but this just isn't the full picture." And for me, a really big aha came when I started meditating. And the most I could do was a 2-minute guided meditation on YouTube because a friend suggested it. And something about it just felt really right in my body. My mind was moving a million miles a second. I probably had like 3,000 thoughts in that 2-minute meditation window, but something about it felt right in my body. So I kept showing up. The next day I did a 3-minute meditation, et cetera, et cetera. And that led to where I started receiving. I think what had happened is I let myself create enough stillness in my analytical mind through meditation to tune into that intuitive flow that I feel very strongly we're all connected with. And in those meditations, I started receiving very, very strong visuals. It's like I was dreaming, but I was wide awake. And at first, it scared the crap out of me. Like, what's going on? So I think the courage piece is it really is just a like a regular practice of continuing to show up when that something about this feels really right. It's a new path for me. I don't have the full path ahead of me, but I know that this next step feels deeply aligned. So I'm going to follow that and then see where that wants to take me. I think that piece is something that has been really, in hindsight, I'm able to see how those stepping stones connect. But in the moment, it's a much different way of living than I lived before. I was so used to having, like, here's my 10-year plan, here's the spreadsheet that analyzes it and the steps that I'm doing to get there. And this way is incredibly opening, incredibly rewarding, and also like pretty terrifying each step of the way with it for me. But that has the more that I step into stretching that comfort zone, the calmer it gets, the easier it gets, the less scary it gets, the more the community comes around. So, yeah, I'm not sure if that answered your question fully, but I would love to fill in any gaps that I'm missing there.
So tell us about what's your life like now? Describe Bonnie now.
Yeah, yeah. I feel very calm most parts of being me. And that's something that, for the longest time, and there's still those stories that come in of who am I supposed to be for this person or that person or in this environment or that environment. But I'm noticing one of the most powerful benefits for me in my own personal experience has been the calm that I feel and letting myself show up as myself. So the Bonnie now, very, very happy. I delight in flowers. I delight at a sunset. I delight at how the clouds look, right? I delight in very authentic connections with people, a lot less armored than I was. I think that's an ongoing journey that I'm really excited to see. Like, if this stage feels this powerful and exciting, like, oh, imagine when I let myself be even more open. A much more grounded, a much calmer Bonnie. Yeah, a much more joyful Bonnie. One that shows up with a lot more sparkle these days. Yeah.
Sparkle. We love sparkle.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing because in my work, it's like, how do I let people know that if they do the work, if they trust, that there's this part of them on the other side of the scary, of the unknown that they get to have. And you're having that grounded, calm. And if I had to give my opinion on what you said, you sound so much more connected all around. You're just not this robot going through life, going to work, coming home, fixing dinner, watching TV, going to bed, starting over again. It's very fluid, and I see on your face because it smiles and it's bright. and you are calm and you're a calming person, which in my book too, it is about people that leave a wake. What kind of wake are they leaving? And being conscious of that, right? Like what we think, everybody feels. So if you're feeling calm and connected, then your ripple effect on the people around you is wonderful because we're so unconnected, we're so disconnected, everybody's so frenetic. And to have this shining pillar of connectedness and calmness, and you don't, and again, being yourself, you don't have to be anything, you just got to be Bonnie.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
for one, let me give you my gratitude. I do have another question for you. Of course, I got many, but I love your letters, your emails that you write, and you ask these questions. It's provocative, intuitive questions. And I know what you're trying to do is trying to draw out people's awareness that we all have intuition. So help us, help the listeners maybe discover some of their own intuition. Like, what would you say to them? Like, some questions, or just do Bonnie with us. Like, bring out our intuition.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to talk through that. I would love to also hear more about what you see with the work that you do with your clients and how you see that unfolding. I know the work that you do is so powerful and helping people to really connect in with who they are at their core and let that be expressed more and more fully in the day to day. So I'll absolutely respond and share a little bit about intuition and how people can connect with it more. But I wanted to plant that seed. You've got
Okay.
that.
Thank you.
You got some time to think about it too. So I think one way is like, what is intuition? Let's talk about that just for a quick second here. And then we'll talk about like what are some practices that can come up and help us to build that muscle of our intuition. And I feel deeply that we are all connected with intuitive information, this intuitive knowing, this inner wisdom, this gut feeling. And there's so much science and research around it, which is so exciting because that's where I light up is like the practical research side. And so blending science and the woo, how can they come together and support us in being the most powerful people that we are? And I led a research project where I interviewed 50 highly intuitive people from around the world on their journey connecting with their intuition. Was honored to work through this data with a fellow researcher, Celeste. She's amazing. I want to give her a big shout out here. And what we found in that research is that they were open-ended questions and everybody, I would say 98%, responded in open-ended questions. The final question was, is there anything else you'd like to share about intuition? And everybody, or 98%, which is huge in the research world for statistics, said that they feel deeply that we all have an intuitive connection. We all have that inner knowing. It comes through in different ways for people, but we all have the capacity for it should we want to choose to tune into it more. So I want to lead with that. And then now let's talk about what is intuition. So, very briefly, have you ever had that instance where you meet someone for the first time and you can't explain why, but you're just deeply drawn to them? Well, Angel, when I met with you, I was like, "Who are you? How do we get to know each other better? Because you're amazing, right?" It's almost like this magnet that gets pulls you, right? Or maybe on the flip side of that, have you ever met anybody and you can't explain why, but like kind of your spidey senses go off? And you're like, "Ooh, maybe I shouldn't spend time with them." So I'm curious if anybody listening has ever just gone ahead and dated that person for a few years anyway, just to see how it would work out.
Sure, we have.
Right? I've certainly been there. Lots of beautiful growth and learning, all of it. But that is how we can start to think about our intuition. Is we've probably had these experiences where we just know we can't explain why sometimes it's without like rational reasoning a lot of times we just know. It also is something really powerful is our intuition comes in so many different forms. So some people, and they all have to do, or some of them have to do with our senses, and they all have different words for them. But we've probably heard of clairvoyancy, so the ability to see maybe things with our eyes open or synchronicities and numbers or visuals and meditation, right? Anything with our sight is our clairvoyancy. But then we also have, if we get goosebumps or body sensations, that's what's called clairsentience. And then we have, anytime, sometimes people will hear ringing or words or downloads, right, that kind of come out of quote unquote nowhere. People will also report that they smell smells that aren't quote unquote physically in a room, right?
Right,
So maybe they smell roses and then
right.
they think of their grandmother in that moment who's transitioned, right? People get tastes, right? We also see a lot of synchronicities in nature. So, and a lot of times we're receiving this information all day, every day, but we're often so busy in our day to day lives, or we choose to stay very busy in our day to day that sometimes we can miss these subtle nudges.
Mhm,
So, one, intuition comes in many, many forms, and we can use it for so many different goals, right? So many different. We had, CPAs, we had nurses, we had, like, you name it, people in the research that talked about how the more they connected in with their intuition, the stronger they became in their business leadership, the more aligned they became as parents, the more in flow they became with that intuitive knowing of following their life purpose,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
It's really, really profound with that. So well, I know this is kind of a long response to give the overview of what intuition is and the ways that it comes. And a big way of how we can connect in with that is finding times that allow us to get really present with ourselves and then creating that space to listen, to tune in, to notice. Maybe that comes through as meditation. Maybe that comes through as walking in the woods and just being curious about what we're noticing. Maybe it comes through journaling, right? There's lots of different ways. Maybe it comes through intuitive dance. There's lots of ways for us to get really present in the moment. And then we get to be really curious about what we're noticing. Are we having those goosebumps? Are we starting to see the same numbers over and over again, right? It's in those moments that we want to pause and ask ourselves, what does this message mean for me? And
Mhm,
often when we let ourselves really be with it, we know because again, it's meant for us and
mhm.
we're always connected to it. Yeah. So it's a lot of information. I want to pause there and just hold space. Is there anything that I can answer more fully or support your community with? I want to make sure I'm covering all the bases.
Well, I kept this little note. I'm thinking about accountants and data research analysts, and they tell you that they're following their intuition and being more aligned in their work. So I have to ask for details. Are they looking at a spreadsheet and then they get a gut feeling? And they look up and maybe it's like, oh, they're right. That number's wrong. I mean, it's mind blowing to think that something is so straight and black and white that something so gray and flowy can influence it. So did I get that right?
Yes. Yeah, you did. Yeah. And I think a way we can look at intuition is it's a deeply sacred support, collaborator, guide, tool in our toolbox that we've often at least in our societies, been taught to maybe undervalue where logic really takes the lead. And my position is that all of these are incredibly important and incredibly valuable for us. So when maybe we've spent 95% of our energy really putting our attention to logic and achievement and spreadsheets, right? And we're starting to build up that 5% around our self trust, our intuition, trusting those knowings.
Hmm.
We do start to see that it is this really beautiful balance of how are we really understanding all these pieces and using them as a guide. I'll give an example from somebody that's more analytical in a story that they shared. They were working and they were on the hiring committee for their company at the time. And they were going through the interview process. And this candidate came through and on paper, they like checked all the boxes, their qualifications lined up perfectly for everything they were looking for. They were very kind. They melded well with the team. But something in this person's knowing, like their gut feeling, or like something's not matching up here. Like it's like, and then the thought that popped in was like their experience isn't what they say their experience is. It was just this deep knowing, this almost like thought that came in out of nowhere is the way
Mhm.
we can describe it. I'll
Yeah.
put nowhere in quotes, right?
Mhm.
So they ended up hiring the person. A few months into the position, it comes out that this person had made up all of their experience
Aw.
and their resume was not what they said it was. So while they were in a very analytical field, they were able to really tune in to that trust and that knowing. They overrode it in that case. But after that experience, they've learned to trust those nudges a little bit more.
Wow. That's a great story. I'll share one. You'd asked me about my work. When I was coming up with the chakra mental method, which is basically 27 years of teaching body movement as it relates to the body fluids, because the fluids give it their quality. And it's just never been fun to teach it that way. And so part of when you talk about sensations and then asking the question, stopping, first of all, like everything you said is so in my wheelhouse. You have to take that moment. You got to shut everything else out. You got to shut the logic out a little bit, open up. But you have to have that moment where you close your eyes and you sink in. And some people don't know what that means. That means just closing your eyes and going into your body, just not being connected to anything outside of you, the noises, thoughts, going completely in, and then listening to any sensation. So in my work with the chakra mental method, we feel those sensations, but what I try to do is give people like a list of questions. Like if it happens in this area of the body, here's some possible questions to ask. Like, what's your message? Where my messages that I teach are going to be a little more specific to what's going on in our lives that we need to pay attention to, where you're talking about these amazing messages that come, like you say, out of nowhere to give you a message. In the somatic world, it's about these chronic messages. It's about not just one time, but by the 40th time that you keep having this achy hip, it's trying to tell you something. So let's crack the code. But this time when I was coming up with the chakra mental method, so I put the body into its 7 chakras to make it a little bit easier to organize your thoughts and your questions around where that sensation is. And I was sitting in a field. It actually was a garden in a resort in Peru. It was like not a resort so much as a retreat center in Peru. And I just heard about the Pleiadians from the Peruvian shaman. And I felt like in that moment, I was sitting very quiet and I was coming up with the chakras and the parts of the body. And I got this voice, this knowing, add the elements. You need to add the elements to all 7 chakras. And I didn't follow the ancient Hindu system. I actually listened to this voice about which ones would be the remedies for these particular areas. And that was the creation of the Chakramental method, which hopefully makes it easier for people because it's like, what's the remedy for this? Well, it's water, it's flow, it's acceptability, availability, flexibility in your mental thinking, in your ability to accept yourself, right?
Yes.
So another little story that you just prompted then about allowing. So that's the thing with intuition is to allow the message to come through.
Yes.
And in my world or in my point of view, to do that, you really have to take off the confines of what we know. It's the human brain, like it's like a computer. It only does what you tell it what it knows. It's kind of a box. But the intuition, our spirit, our messages come from outside that box. And the only way to really receive them is to take the confines off, the restrictions of, it must look a certain way. I must think a certain way. I must speak a certain way. And once you take those confines off, this is what happened last night in class. We all showed up at class and we all had some frustrating thing that happened that day with another human. So in our movement, we actually allowed this frustration to come up. And we said things that are inappropriate to say outside a private area. Just we got mad at that human. We said angry stuff. We just let it out.
Yes.
Once we let it out and we started using the movements that were focusing on the second chakra, the word no came up. And no showed up in one of these movements where we were using metal to go across the floor. And we were flowing with it, and it was like, no, no, but then no with the flow. So you don't have to be harsh. I'm going to put this all together. We had frustrating things with humans, probably because we didn't say no. We didn't honor ourselves that had a boundary and said enough. We let that human, whatever it was, come in, take advantage, too much energy, whatever. That's our fault. We really have to be honoring our own energy. Frustration. We got the frustration out. Like we had to let the icky go. And then you get down to what the basic problem is. And that was no, we didn't say no. So then we said no. And we said no in an angry way. But then once we got that out, it's like no with the flow. And no with the flow really means you can say no with grace. Just hold your space, hold your energy, respect it. And if you respect your space, others will respect it. It's like role modeling, like you leaving the wake of calmness. If you leave the wake of, I respect myself, people will respect you. They will shift over time if you hold your own. So this whole no with the flow. What do you think about that?
Oh my God, I love it. I love it so much. Like, thank you so much for sharing. I've got a follow-up question. I want to hear more about your experience in Peru. And the synthesis of our body, we can think about it when we're thinking about our intuition. Our body is like our antenna,
Mhm.
right? A way we can think about it. And we all have an intuitive radio station that's happening all the time. When our opportunity is how can I get my antenna to be very present and very clear,
Clear.
and that allowing our emotions to move through, communicating what we're actually saying. And this can be so hard. I want us to have so much compassion for ourselves because often we can have a lot of messaging, especially as women. Or those that present as women of like, oh, we're supposed to be this way or that way, or don't ruffle the boat, don't say no, right? So to have that ability to say, okay, how can I communicate with integrity? How can I actually say can the words that are coming out of my mouth align with the energy that I'm feeling around this question or this issue and keep that flowing through? And then looking at our antenna, our body, and the opportunity for really supporting our nervous system. I know there's a lot of conversations around nervous system regulation, but getting into the why, I'm so inspired by your program and your framework, Angel, with how we're really looking into our chakra system. How are we looking at regulating and supporting our nervous system and allowing ourselves to use the wisdom of our body in a grounded way.
Mm.
And then we get to also play with the mindset piece of it. So what we're seeing in the research is when we're allowing ourselves to get into those more present states, more embodied states, maybe more meditative states. I can't explain why, but everything is just kind of like present and it's almost like there's more space around me, right?
Mhm.
What we're seeing is we're allowing ourselves to get more easily into our theta brain waves, our alpha and our theta brain waves. And what we're seeing is when we get our bodies, our antennas into that present state, we're allowing ourselves to get into those theta brainwaves a little bit more frequently, a little more easily versus our beta, which are the spreadsheets, the go, go, goes, right? And it's in those more theta, sometimes alpha brainwaves that we're able to tune into our intuitive radio station more easily. And what I love about this, especially the research mind, the science mind, is like, oh, there's a framework, there's a practice, there's an approach we can do. How we get into those states, for some people it might be dance, for some people it might be hiking, for other people it might be solo travel, right? But allowing ourselves to really get into that flow and tune into the wisdom of our bodies is I don't want to say it's everything, but it's like pretty much everything with it. Yeah. I'm curious kind of on that conversation when you were in Peru and you received that information to integrate the elements from the Palladians, which we're so connected. We have so much support. And if anybody wants to like dive deeper, I'm happy to chat more about it. But I think what's beautiful about this journey of tapping in more fully with our intuition is just how much we are supported, the range of which we're supported by, and the information we have collaboration with if we let ourselves show up for it.
Mhm.
So it sounds like such a beautiful experience when you receive that information to add the elements with the chakra method. I'm curious what you noticed about how you felt in that moment. So when that information was being received or being shared, what did you notice about how you felt in your body or your immediate environment?
That's a great question. The podcast guest asking the podcast host. Nice. Nice toss. See what you did. What's so interesting about that is I was meditating. So I was cross-legged in this garden with my eyes closed, just being quiet. And really, the only question I had in my mind at the time was, what am I going to do with this knowledge, with this ability to teach? What am I going to do with this? And when I'd already gotten to the chakra part of the body, and this thought comes in, add the elements. The elements fit in perfectly. I open my eyes like, who said that? What I wanted to be clairvoyant, I wanted to see that person, that thing that said that. Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
nothing there.
Yep.
But
Nothing in air quotes.
right. But what was present was I was sitting in I think it was the heart chakra part of the garden. These gardens were parceled out per chakra. And I happened to be sitting in the heart chakra part of the garden. So there were hearts everywhere. There were red flowers and pink flowers, and everything was about supporting the heart. So when I looked up and saw that, and I was sitting on the ground, and there's moisture in the air, and the breeze blew, and I'm like, oh, this all makes sense. This all comes together with the elements. So the feeling you're looking for when you ask that question is all of a sudden everything went aligned. They just aligned. I felt grounded. I felt complete. I felt like whatever was out there that was not connected came in to connect. It's like missing parts just kind of came in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And see, for people who aren't watching us, what we're doing is we're doing this hand motion where we make a line, meaning that it's all together.
Yes.
But it is. It felt when I opened my eyes, I was like, "Oh, this makes sense," because I felt complete. I didn't feel like there was anything missing.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing and for being able to really, communicate that what I hear you saying is it was this like very absolute matter of fact. The information all aligned with what you were focusing on. And then it had a feeling of completeness with it too. Like here are the pieces. Now it's my opportunity to carry this forward. So thank you so much for carrying it forward into the support that you're offering. It's really inspiring.
Well, Bonnie, you're inspiring, as you know. Bonnie does these, I guess it's once a quarter Spark meetings. Tell us a little bit about that before we end, because I think that's a beautiful way to actually for food for thought for our audience.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So they're quarterly events and it's all around. So a lot of the work that I'm so honored to let move, I keep saying let move through me, is really at the core is personal expansion through joy. And when we are able to let ourselves listen to what really lights us up, it's almost like this magnet pulling us forward. So, a lot of the work I'm honored to support, either in one on one intuition mentorship or in group programs where we lead workshops or conversations, it's so much around like who are you at your core before you kind of learn to listen to what everybody else wanted you to be, step one. And then step two, how do we tune into the rhythms and the knowings of your body through breath work, through visualization, through guided movement, right? Somatic experiences to help get that antenna open and present. And then let's tune in to those messages coming through. So the Spark events that are happening once a quarter here in Knoxville, Tennessee. They're so much fun, and it's all around that. So the essence of it is personal transformation through joy, and it's all around connecting with ourselves and then with each other. So it's a morning pop-up experience where it's from 9:30 to 11:30, so late enough if you want to sleep in on a Saturday, but you're finished before lunch. And we start with a gentle meditation. Then I lead us through a guided meditation in alignment with collaboration with the seasons. So the spring theme is going to be different than the summer theme, going to be different than the fall. And then we transition into a DJ dance party. And it's so much fun. We've got a phenomenal DJ. Abrica Bocus is who she goes by for her DJ name. And she plays like disco, funk. She plays a lot of different kinds, but that's the kind of music that we play for Spark. And what's really intentional with this space, it's heavily research rooted and delight delivered. I like to say that's a tagline that came through meditation. So, how do we pull it into our businesses? There's a lot of intention around come be exactly who you are, be present. If you want to be really social, be social. If you want to dance with your eyes closed in the corner, do that, right? But we have a pop-up costume closet so people can put on different types of outfits and it's all around yeah, right, they're so fun,
Yes.
right? And it's so much around, like, how are we letting ourselves show up as our authentic self and let that armor down? There's no, like, "Hello, my name is Bonnie, and here are all my accolades and credentials," right? You can be that. There's a lot of really incredible people that collaborations come out of Spark, which is so fun, but, it's I like to say it's personal expansion disguised as a morning dance party.
Nice.
And they're a great time.
And why is it what tell me this, we're gonna leave our audience with this little nugget of thought. Why do you call it Spark?
Yeah. Spark is so that you're able to come and really tune into who you are in these morning pop-up experiences and then carry that spark with you into everything you do in your day to day.
That's it. That's it. To carry that spark, and that spark is by touching into your true spirit and sharing that with all of us.
I can give a shameless plug. I'm not sure when this is going to air,
Good.
but our next one is June 14th at Fly By Night in South Knoxville. So if you're interested, the registration will be live soon. Reach out and we'll make sure we get that to you.
How do people connect with you, Bonnie?
Yeah, yeah. Most active. So my website is intuitivebynature.com. And also the name Intuitive by Nature came in a meditation. So just to share the ways that we can tune into this for our businesses. And then I'm also most active on Instagram. So intuitive underscore by underscore nature. It's me behind that. I have someone that helps me as well, but it's me that answers the direct messages. So shoot me a message there and we'll start a conversation.
Bonnie, like I started out saying, with this role modeling wake of calmness and actually more spirit and spark. You leave
Yeah.
sparkles in your wake. And you do. Just during this podcast, I've seen your face actually grow, lightened up. I mean, I don't know if you could feel it, but you have like expanded. Yeah. It's beautiful. And thank you
Beautiful.
so much for discovering who you are and then helping others really discover who they are inside, because that's why they are down here on earth, to share with us who they really are. So thank you
Absolutely.
for
Absolutely.
uncovering these spirits.
Absolutely. I think we're so unlimited. We're so unlimited if we let ourselves be. And I'm working actively each day to figure out how can I remove those boundaries to let us shine even more fully. So it's such an honor to be here with you, Angel. And for those listening in, thank you for being with us on this journey. It's so wonderful connecting.
Yeah, you sparkle on. Okay. Stay on after this, all right? Okay. Thank you to Bonnie Casamassina, our research analyst turned intuitive teacher. What an amazing woman. Thank you so much for being on the show. This is the Upshift, where change makers gather and ideas are exchanged. Real talk happens. I am your host, Angel Howard. And I'd love to hear from you. You can write me an email at angel@angelhoward.co, or invite me to speak at your next event. Also, just write me an email, angel@angelhoward.co. My website is obviously Angel Howard at co, angelhoward.co. And let's see how far you can go. Get my book. Get my book, Issues in Your Tissues, on Amazon today. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time.